Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about circles. I know we've talked about that in the area unit that we had, and volume obviously that we just finished up with, cylinders, cones, spheres, hemispheres. We know a little bit about circles, but we're just going to break into more of that this last unit we have. So, to start off with what we know a center is a set of all points that are equidistant from the center point. So, circles are named by their centers, so if I put an X right here, this would be called circle X. The radius that I draw is a segment formed by endpoints at the center of the circle and the edge of the circle. So X is my center, edge is going to be somewhere out here. Let's call this Y. XY is a segment that would dictate my radius. And a diameter is a segment formed with endpoints on the edge of the circle that is collinear with the center. So if I use my XY that I already have and extend this out all the way to the other side, let's call this Z. YZ is now my diameter of circle X. Now a diameter we know is made up of two radii, which is why when we go into the formulas we know. Circumference of a circle, aka fancy word for perimeter. I always say 2r pi or 2 pi r, but you could also just say whatever the diameter is times pi, because 2 radii is equal to 1 diameter. Alright, so a little recap. Also, area of a circle, we've been using that a lot. R squared pi or pi r squared. Okay, now going into the new stuff. Chord, tangent, secant, central angle, inscribed angle. Let's start with a chord. Alright, now a chord is a segment that has its endpoints on the edge of the circle, both endpoints. So if you use that definition, we can actually see that segment ZY, which we specifically call our diameter, is also a chord. Okay, it's got endpoints on the edge of the circle. Now a diameter is a special type of chord. I could draw another one maybe over here. Endpoint on the edge of the circle, let's call that AB. This would also be a chord. Or if I draw it down here, there's a chord, there's a chord. If I draw it through the center again, there's my diameter, which is a special type of chord. Or if I draw a little one right here, chord. Alright, you get the idea. So my chord in this diagram is going to be AB. And for our definition here, I'm just going to say segment with endpoints on edge of circle. Edge of circle. Alright, that's chord. Now tangent only hits the circle once. So this one's going to be, it could be a line, could be a segment, but it only hits the circle once. So I'll draw it off to the side. There's 1 point, and my circle is only hit by this line. Whoops. Let's actually make this so it hits. So that would be my tangent line right there. Okay, let's make some arrows, call it a line. Let's call this point C, and let's call this D right here. So line CD would be a tangent. Hits the circle at 1 point, and that point is called a point of tangency. Write that off to the side. Point of tangency. The spot at which the line hits the circle. Only one. So this, I'll say line CD. Could be a segment too, but it is I'll say seg slash line that touches or intersects, maybe fancier word, touches circle at 1 point. And that point is called the point of tangency. Alright, now let's move over. Let's go to a secant. Okay, secant is going to definitely be a line. And the thing about a secant is it's literally just an extension of a chord that goes outside of the circle's edge. So if I take my segment AB, which we called a chord, and I extend it, let's line this up so it actually matches with where those points are. Now, boom, boom, that's a secant line now. Okay? So that would be line AB as a secant line. Now let me actually go ahead and make a new one. I'll intersect it a little bit, so keep that in mind where my colors are. Secant line, put some arrows on it eventually, but tangent, secant, tangent, secant. You get the idea. Secant line. Let's see. Let's call this EF and just keep the order going. So this is line EF. And I'll just say a secant is a line extended outside a circle from a chord. So think of it just chord extended as a secant line. Alright, so without getting too much more confusing, I kind of want to erase this stuff just so we can focus in on now the angles. So I'll erase all that. Let's still keep this as circle X. And now a central angle, not super complicated, but it's a circle. The center of our circle is going to be where the angle happens. So I could draw one right here. There, this would be an example of a central angle, an angle happening at the center. So I'll say an angle with vertex at center. And what do we notice about these sides of this is that these, you should notice, are radii. So the sides of a central angle are radii. Radii are sides. And we know what radii are congruent, so I'll just put a little tick mark there. So this would be my example here. Angle Z, X, Y. Now an inscribed angle, a little bit different. Here the center is actually going to be anywhere on the edge of the circle. So maybe I can put it, let's change colors here. Maybe I can put it over here. And the sides of an inscribed angle are actually chords. So I could draw one right there or here. I could make it a little bit bigger and go out here. Let's actually use the big one. Let's call this A, B, C. So what are the sides of this inscribed angle? Are the chords. So my example here, angle CAB, and this is an angle with the vertex on edge of circle. And just really quick, just off to the side, I'll say chords are the sides. Okay, now we know chords don't have to be congruent here. We can see that AB is a little bit shorter than AC just by looking. But again, I can move this point anywhere I want along the circle. So this could be what I want. Kind of took that S with me. Whoops. I can make it a little bit smaller. There's still a chord, still on the edge of my circle. And that is also a chord. And still an inscribed angle with the vertex of angle A. Alright, so that's just a little recap. We're going to do more with this going into the next couple days here. But just a little insight, I would maybe make some flashcards, make sure you got some solid notes. Hopefully you like my color coding, and we'll see you next time.